Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, I married a mechanic out of spite. His name was Liam, a man I had always treated with cold indifference. Until the day I died of cancer, I never realized that he had loved me deeply all along. After my death, my soul quietly followed him for 3 months. Only then did I discover that all those years he had silently endured everything, suppressing his love for me. Then somehow I went back to the night of our wedding. Liam had just been kicked off the bed by me, and was bending down to pick up his jacket from the floor. Getting ready to leave, I lunged forward and wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. "Please don't go." Liam froze. His whole body trembled uncontrollably, but then he let out a cold, bitter laugh. "You don't have to hold on to me for him anymore." God, he really knew how to hit right where it hurt. After I died, my soul didn't disappear. It lingered beside Liam. Not long after the funeral, a matchmaker came to introduce him to someone. Liam, with that same cold face, threw her out and told her never to come again. The woman, angry, shouted, "If it weren't for your looks, who would ever want to marry a broke man like you? Just stay single for the rest of your life." Only then did I learn that Liam had contacted an overseas hospital through a third party, trying to find a way to treat my illness. But in the end, he was scammed. His money was gone and I was gone too. Looking back on that life, I realized I had never treated him kindly. I was always throwing tantrums, sulking, picking fights, demanding a divorce every other day. And yet, he still went to temples to pray, wishing that in the next life he could stay by my side again. When I opened my eyes again, Liam was standing next to the bed, one hand resting on his hip, his gaze cold and sharp. "Even after marrying me, you still want to keep yourself for him." That's when I suddenly remembered what day it was. At our wedding banquet earlier, I had been chatting with some old classmates. One of them, drunk, brought up the past and said, "What a shame. You and Adam used to be such a perfect couple. If he hadn't gone abroad, you two probably would have gotten married by now." Back then, I didn't realize Liam was standing right behind me. I just laughed and said teasingly, "Yeah, I've been keeping myself for him all these years, but he never came back to marry me." When I turned around, I caught the deep, unreadable look in Liam's eyes. I should have explained right then, but with everyone around I stayed silent. Because of that silence, he held that grudge ever since. Now, I finally understood I had been reborn. I took a deep breath and looked up at him. "Liam, that night I was only joking with my classmate. I wasn't saving myself for anyone. I just wasn't ready yet." He stared at me for a long moment in silence, then bent down to pick up his jacket. Panicking, I blurted out, "Liam, I'm serious. I'm telling the truth." But his expression stayed cold. "Funny, you never said who he was." My heart sank. In my previous life, every time we argued, he would twist my words and leave me speechless. Over time, I had learned to speak carefully, leaving no room for him to find fault. But this time I truly had no defense. As he was about to leave the room, I snapped out of it and rushed after him, wrapping my arms around him from behind once more. "Liam, please, I'm telling the truth. Don't go." In my past life, I had never hugged him like that. The moment I did, my heart started racing uncontrollably. His shoulders were broad and solid, his waist strong and firm. His body carried that raw masculine scent that was uniquely his. Under my cold fingertips, his skin burned hot. Without thinking, my hand brushed lightly across his abdomen, and my fingers trembled at the warmth. Liam inhaled sharply, his entire body shaking. But then he let out another low, bitter laugh. "What now? You don't need to stay pure for him anymore. They say that what you owe in a past life must be repaid in this one. How true that is. I was the one who started everything, who pushed him away, who told him to leave. And now I was the one begging him to stay. Who could endure that? But no matter what I said, it was already too late. All I could do now was try to make up for it. I stepped around to face him and looked up into his eyes. "Can we try again? I promise this time I won't stop halfway." He didn't respond, only frowned slightly, as if deep in thought. Gritting my teeth, I pulled off my blouse in one swift motion and threw myself into his arms again. I never expected what happened next. Liam suddenly shoved me hard, his face filled with anger. "You'd go this far for him?" My throat tightened and not a single word could come out. He let out a cold laugh, his eyes sharp and mocking. If you don't want this, then why bother forcing it? He slammed the door and walked out, leaving me once again alone in our wedding room. That night, he moved out and stayed at his repair shop. Things were even worse than in my previous life. A few days later, my classmate, the one who got drunk at our wedding, came to see me. He looked guilty and asked, "Did you and Liam fight because of what I said?" "I'm so sorry. I always talk nonsense when I'm drunk." I shook my head. "It's fine." I had already explained everything to him. He nodded repeatedly. Married couples shouldn't hold grudges for long, especially newlyweds. Just take your time and talk things out. Then his tone changed suddenly. "Oh, by the way, did you know that Adam is coming back to the country?" I froze. "What did you just say?" He instantly looked regretful. "I shouldn't have said anything. I only asked him whether he got your wedding invitation." He got angry, and I think I heard something break on his end of the line. "Anyway, I'm sorry, Emma." I forced a small smile and shook my head. "It doesn't matter. I'm married now. Even if he comes back, it won't change anything." Before leaving, my classmate hesitated, then asked quietly, "You two used to love each other so deeply. Have you really forgotten him?" I didn't answer. When Adam and I broke up, it was after a terrible fight. At that time, my parents had been pressuring me to get married soon. Adam and I had been together for 5 years already. I gently asked if he had thought about marriage. After all, I wasn't young anymore. But instead of understanding, he turned it around and blamed me for not supporting him. He said he wanted to focus on his career first before thinking about marriage. Coincidentally, that very day, my mother called him to talk about our engagement. When everything came to light, Adam bluntly declared that he had no intention of getting married. My parents didn't say a word. That same night, they took me home immediately. It's been 3 years since then. If I still think of Adam at all, it's only to wish I'd never have to see him again. But life really has a twisted sense of humor because we met again. It happened at Liam's auto repair shop. Liam hadn't been answering my calls or replying to my messages. I knew waiting wouldn't solve anything, so I decided to make the first move. That day I had a day off, so I cooked a few of his favorite dishes and brought them over to his shop. On the way, a heavy rain started pouring down. By the time I arrived, I was soaked through. Liam wasn't on the first floor. Only a man in a neat business suit was there, probably a customer. I didn't pay much attention to him and started heading upstairs to find Liam. But before I could take a few steps, a familiar voice called out, "Emma." I turned around and my eyes met Adam's. He walked toward me quickly, his eyes bright with surprise and joy. "I thought they gave me the wrong address. I can't believe you actually live nearby. How have you been?" I kept my distance politely. "I've been fine." I started to move past him, but Adam suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Emma, are you still mad at me? You know, your mom was pushing me too hard that day." I said those things out of anger, but I've thought about it a lot since then. "We should get married. I came back for you." I stared coldly at the man standing before me, dressed sharply, composed, and more mature than before. 3 years had passed, and he certainly seemed steadier, calmer. If I hadn't known him so well, I might have been moved by that heartfelt confession. But I knew better than anyone. If he had truly loved me, he wouldn't have disappeared for 3 years without a word. I pulled my hand free and raised the one wearing my wedding ring. "Adam, I'm married." He looked unfazed, his expression calm. "I know. They already told me. But you and I both know," Adam said, lowering his voice in that familiar coaxing way. "This is just your trick to make me come back, isn't it? You're still mad at me, right? Tell me, what do I have to do for you to forgive me?" I was speechless. "I'm really married, Adam. This auto shop belongs to my husband." But Adam just smiled faintly, clearly not believing a word I said. "All right then," he said lightly. "Why don't you call your husband out here? I'd like to meet him." The very next second, a deep cold voice sounded from behind me. "You want to meet me for something?" Liam walked in, his broad shoulders and narrow waist framed by the doorway, his expression unreadable. He stopped right in front of me, creating an invisible wall between me and Adam. I tugged gently at the hem of Liam's shirt. "Liam, I'm soaked through." Without turning his head, he said calmly, "There are clothes upstairs." It was the first thing he'd said to me since our wedding night. I smiled faintly. "Okay. But just as I turned to go upstairs, Adam called after me. Emma, wait. Instinctively, I glanced back at Liam. His expression didn't change as he said coldly, "He's here to get his car fixed." Liam had one good trait. He never picked fights with customers. Hearing that, I relaxed and went upstairs. The clothes I was wearing were completely ruined, but there wasn't anything of mine up there. After searching for a while, I found one of Liam's white shirts and put it on. It hung loosely on me, reaching just above my thighs. I looked around for a hairdryer but couldn't find one. So I stood at the top of the stairs and called out, "Liam!" The rain outside was so heavy that it drowned out my voice. I sighed and went downstairs. Liam was standing beside a car talking to Adam. When he saw me, he froze for a moment, then immediately grabbed a work jacket from the side and wrapped it around my legs. His voice was low but sharp. "Who told you to come down here dressed like that?" I blinked in surprise. In my past life, no matter how angry Liam had been, he had never spoken to me in that tone. It took me a moment to realize he wasn't angry at me. He was angry because I was wearing something short in front of another man. I leaned my head lightly against his chest. I couldn't find the hairdryer. "I'm cold and uncomfortable." He hesitated slightly, his expression still tense. "You couldn't call me." "I did," I said softly, "but the rain was too loud. You didn't hear me." He said nothing more, just took my hand and started leading me upstairs. But Adam's voice called out again, "Emma, can we talk for a minute?" Before I could respond, Liam turned, his voice icy. "Hey man, my wife's dressed like this, and you still want to talk to her?" Adam's jaw tightened. "This is between me and her." Liam gave a dry, mocking laugh. He looked like a decent man most of the time, but when he smiled like that, he had a dangerous rough edge. His rolled-up sleeves revealed strong, lean muscles, and with a smooth motion, he wrapped an arm around my waist. His tone was half amused, half threatening. "Too bad. Whatever concerns her also concerns me. You can talk to me instead." Adam's eyes darkened. "Then, can I at least get her phone number?" Without missing a beat, Liam pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to him. "Call this number." From the security camera upstairs, I watched Adam leave, his face twisted with anger. He didn't even bother to finish fixing his car before driving off. Honestly, it was the first time I had ever seen Liam so openly possessive. On the way home, I couldn't stop smiling while his face grew darker with every passing block. When we arrived, he slammed the car door shut so hard that it rattled in my ears. I followed behind him quietly, obedient as a cat. As soon as we got inside, he went straight to the bathroom. I turned and locked the front door, slipping the key into my pocket. A few minutes later, Liam knocked on the bathroom door while I was showering. "You locked the door?" he asked through the door. "I did," I replied. "Where's the key?" I raised my hand and jingled it behind the door. "Right here." He went silent for a long time. When I finished my shower and stepped out, he was nowhere to be seen. But I wasn't worried. There was only one key to the house, and he couldn't leave without it. Sure enough, I found him in the guest bedroom. He was lying on the bed, shirtless, his muscles defined under the warm glow of the lamp, strong, smooth, and perfectly shaped. I walked over quietly and called softly, "Liam." Liam trembled slightly but didn't open his eyes. I pulled the towel from my body, lifted the blanket, and slipped under it, nestling close beside him. The moment my skin touched his, he jolted upright like a spring. But I was ready. I quickly shifted and pinned him beneath me. The veins on his forehead tightened. His voice came out low and filled with frustration. "Emma, don't mess around with me anymore." I leaned down and kissed him softly on the lips. "Liam, I'm ready now." His hands clenched tightly at his sides. His eyes looked at me the way a groom might look when being forced into a wedding. Stubborn, tense, and barely holding himself together. But I didn't care. I kissed him again, deeper this time, pressing closer. In my previous life, every time we were intimate, I was always half-hearted, hesitant, unresponsive, giving only what I had to. He always restrained himself, careful not to push me, never once allowing himself full release. But this time I didn't want him to suffer anymore. At first, Liam stayed still, not reacting. But once he realized I was completely serious, he suddenly flipped us over, taking control with all the restrained force he had buried for so long. I couldn't keep up. Between tears and gasps, I begged him to slow down, to be gentler. He only eased slightly, and by the time it was over, I was limp and dazed, drifting towards sleep in his arms. But then just as I was about to fall asleep, he picked me up again. Half asleep, I pushed weakly at his chest. "Stop. I'm so tired." "Wake up," he said sharply. I blinked awake, startled, and met his frustrated gaze. "What? What's wrong?" Liam pulled me upright and sat me on his lap. His eyes burned into mine. "That man came all the way to our door, and you're not planning to say anything? You mean Adam?" I muttered sleepily. "I don't know what to say. Tomorrow I'll ask around and find out who told him where we were." Honestly, all I wanted was to sleep, but the moment I closed my eyes again, Liam shook me. "You really didn't tell him? You swear?" "I didn't," I said, exasperated. "I have no idea why he showed up at the shop. In my last life, I didn't see Adam again until a month after our wedding, but this time it had only been a week, 3 weeks earlier than before. And not only that, in my last life we met again at a class reunion, not at the auto shop. Maybe because I'd been reborn, the timeline had shifted too. But Liam didn't believe me. He just kept staring as if trying to see through every word. Exhausted, I pleaded. "Please, can I just sleep? It's almost morning and I'm so tired." Maybe seeing how worn out I really was, he finally relented. "Tomorrow we'll find out the truth." I nodded quickly. "Okay, we will." Then I curled up in his arms, found a comfortable spot, and drifted into sleep. Maybe it was because Liam was beside me, but that night I dreamed of so many things, memories I had buried deep and forced myself to forget. In my previous life, things between us hadn't always been so cold. Back when things were good, we'd been like any ordinary couple, walking together, traveling, laughing, enjoying simple happiness. So when did everything start to fall apart? I think it was that day. He had made my favorite dish, spicy Sichuan shrimp, and came to our room to wake me up for dinner. But when he opened the door, he caught me hurriedly closing a drawer. Liam was observant. He immediately sensed something was off, but instead of confronting me, he smiled and asked, "What are you hiding?" I didn't answer. He walked over, opened the drawer himself, and found a half-used pack of birth control pills. We had a huge fight. He smashed the window with his bare hand, blood dripping everywhere. Yet even then he tried to stay calm. "Emma," he said quietly, "there must be a reason. Tell me what's wrong." I met his eyes and said flatly, "There's nothing wrong. I just don't want to have your child." From the moment we stopped using protection, he had started preparing a nursery, a dream he had held on to for months. And I was the one who shattered it with my own hands. A few days later, the room that had been half finished, painted in soft colors, filled with tiny hopes, was dismantled piece by piece until nothing was left. Our relationship hit rock bottom after that. Even though we still lived under the same roof, Liam became cold, distant, like a stranger. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked for a divorce. Liam agreed without hesitation, and in my fury, I screamed at him, "If you refuse to divorce me," I shouted, my voice shaking, "then don't ever dream of having a child." Liam stayed unnervingly calm. He opened the drawer, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and placed it in front of me. It was my pregnancy test result. "Then this baby," he said quietly, his voice trembling beneath the surface. "You ended it yourself, didn't you?" The truth wasn't like that at all. I had been pregnant several times, but each time ended in an early miscarriage, a biochemical pregnancy. Back then I hadn't gone for a proper checkup. I didn't know the real reason. I didn't realize it might have been due to my own health. But I was too stubborn to bow my head to him, too proud to show weakness. So I nodded and admitted to something I hadn't done. "Yes," I said coldly. "I ended it myself." The look in his eyes at that moment. I still can't forget it. I thought time would make him forget, at least more easily than I could. But I was wrong. Even years later, I would wake in the middle of the night crying uncontrollably. And only after I died did I learn that every year, he went to the temple to light incense and pray for the unborn child who never got the chance to come into this world. "Emma." "Hey." I stirred awake, my throat dry and burning, and found Liam sitting beside the bed, his brows furrowed tight. "What's wrong?" I asked hoarsely. "You had a fever." he said, pressing his hand to my forehead. You were mumbling in your sleep. My stomach dropped. What did I say? He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up a digital thermometer and placed it against my forehead. You've got a high fever. I groaned, glaring weakly at him. It's your fault. I told you to stop last night, but you didn't listen. Liam gave a faint hum, his voice low. My fault. Come on, get up and take your medicine. Maybe because he felt guilty, he didn't let me move on my own. He took care of me attentively, almost overly gentle. Hey, I murmured. Did I ever tell you how handsome you are? His face reddened slightly, but he tried to stay composed. What are you trying to say? I let my eyes wander over his abs, then sighed dramatically. What a waste, though. A body like that. Such a shame to let it go unused. He froze. Emma, he warned, his voice tight. Don't play with fire. I grinned mischievously and reached out to tease him, but he caught my wrist firmly, his gaze dark and deep. Then tell me about your ex-boyfriend showing up. What's that about? I stared at him blankly. Oh great. Dig your own grave, Emma. Trying to sound innocent, I said. I just found out about it too. I've already asked someone to look into it. I thought he'd keep interrogating me, but instead he simply said, let me know when you find something. I blinked. You're not mad. Stop talking nonsense and go back to sleep, he muttered. That night, I received a text message from an unknown number. Emma, it's me, Adam. Before I could even react, my phone started ringing. I accidentally hit accept, and his voice came through the line. Emma, are you free? Let's have dinner. There's something I want to tell you. My tone turned cold. I'm not free. His voice stayed calm. Then when will you be? I can wait. Any time works for me. I frowned. What exactly do you want, Adam? He was silent for a moment before replying softly. I just want to see you just once. I clenched my teeth trying to stay calm but finally snapped. Are you out of your mind texting me like this in the middle of the night? What's wrong with you? I had no idea what kind of illusion I'd given him to make him think I still had any lingering feelings left. I'm happy with my husband, I said firmly. We're doing great. I've never thought about divorcing him, and I never will, so stop bothering me. Before he could respond, I hung up. I truly couldn't understand what had gotten into Adam. In my previous life, after we'd met at that reunion, he'd learned I was married and never contacted me again. But now he was acting like a completely different person, obsessive, relentless. A chilling thought struck me. Could he have been reborn too? But even if that were true, so what? I wouldn't leave Liam for him. Not now. Not ever. The next morning, I went downstairs to take a walk. The moment I stepped out of the building, I froze. Adam was standing there in the courtyard holding a bouquet of flowers. My expression darkened immediately. How did you find this place? He walked over with a bright smile. I passed by a flower shop earlier and saw these Corolla roses, the kind you like, so I thought I'd bring them to you. I don't want them, I said coldly. But thanks anyway. But I haven't liked those flowers in a long time, I said flatly. Adam's expression stiffened. Really? He used to buy a bouquet every week to keep in your house. People change, I replied calmly. He looked at me as if my words had struck him in the chest. Emma, do you really have to be this heartless? Before I could respond, he continued earnestly. I know everything now. You met that guy through a blind date, right? There were no real feelings between you two. Everyone said you only married him because you were angry at me. But I'm back now. Let's just start over, okay? We can live together and be happy again. Yes, it was true that I'd married Liam partly out of defiance toward my parents, but that had nothing to do with Adam. And the truth was my feelings for him had already faded long before. Even in my previous life, after he left without a word, I had forced myself to move on. 3 years isn't a lifetime, but it's long enough to forget someone. But Adam, he was different. In his mind, I was still that naive girl who once clung to him for everything, who saw him as her entire world. There's no such thing as love that never changes, I said slowly. And no one is obligated to stand still and wait for someone forever. Please, Adam, stop looking for me. My husband won't be happy about this, and if you keep bothering me, I'll call the police. With that, I turned and walked away. Wait, Emma, he called after me. There's one more thing. At the end of this month, our class is having a reunion. I really hope you'll come. I was about to refuse, but then I thought about it again. Maybe it would be a good chance to bring Liam with me, to show everyone that I was happily married, to stop them from ever pairing me with Adam again. So I nodded. All right. Adam smiled faintly. Then, can I hug you one last time? Before I could react, he stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. A wave of disgust surged through me instantly. I reflexively pushed at his chest. But before I could break free, an angry voice boomed from behind us. What the hell are you two doing? Startled, I shoved Adam away with all my strength. He stumbled back a few steps, barely keeping his balance. I rushed to Liam without saying a word and threw my arms around him. Honey, he hugged me. It was disgusting. Liam was furious, his breathing sharp and uneven. I peeked up at him and saw the cold, blade-like fury in his eyes, locked squarely on Adam. Across from us, Adam's expression had changed completely. No trace of the gentleness from earlier remained. His face had turned dark, icy. Emma, go home first, Liam said quietly, his voice tight with restraint. I clung to his hand. No, let's just go together. He frowned slightly, but I whispered, it's not worth it to argue with someone like him. You'll only make yourself angry for nothing. Liam's shoulders relaxed just a bit. I could tell by his expression that my words had worked. Let's go home, he said simply. Later, one of my classmates told me that Adam got drunk that night. So drunk that he kept repeating my name over and over. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard it. If I hadn't been reborn, I would have never known the truth that while he was overseas, Adam had gotten married. His daughter was already 2 years old. So, who exactly was he trying to fool now with that lovesick act? My health had been improving, and I encouraged Liam to go back to the auto shop to work. He usually came home in time for dinner every night. But that evening it was already 10 o'clock, and there was still no sign of him. Feeling uneasy, I went to the shop myself. One of the new employees looked startled when she saw me. Mrs. Carter, Liam got taken to the police station. That guy who came to cause trouble before, it was him again. He provoked Liam, and Liam lost his temper. You should go check. On the way there, I kept replaying it in my head. Liam might look rough around the edges, but in truth, he was calm and soft-spoken. He rarely lost control or got into fights. For him to actually throw a punch, he must have been pushed past his limit. When I arrived, the moment I saw Adam's bruised, swollen face, I understood everything. Liam sat straight back, composed, not looking like someone who'd been in a fight at all. I walked up to him, grabbed his arm, and tried to lift his shirt to check if he was hurt. Startled, Liam caught my hand mid-motion. Not here, he said in a low voice, glancing at the officers around us. There are too many people. Before Liam could finish his sentence, he suddenly sucked in a sharp breath. I followed his gaze and saw a large purple bruise spreading across his shoulder. Turning to the officer nearby, I said firmly, "We'd like an injury assessment, please." Adam, who had been sitting silently until then, snapped his head toward me, his expression full of disbelief and hurt. "Emma, you're asking for an injury report for him?" I stared at him coldly. "That's right. And not just that. I'm also filing a report against you for property damage and assault." His lips pressed into a thin line. "Aren't you even going to ask if I'm hurt?" A laugh of disbelief escaped me. "You attacked my husband, smashed up our shop, and I haven't ripped you apart yet. That's me being merciful. And you still expect me to ask how you're doing?" Adam fell silent. I didn't bother wasting another second on him. I went out to buy medicine, then came back and calmly applied ointment to Liam's shoulder right in front of Adam. 2 hours later, the results came back. The security footage showed everything clearly. It was Adam who had started the fight. He was detained for disturbing the peace and ordered to pay for all damages to the shop. When we got home, I continued to dab medicine on Liam's bruises. He had been quiet the whole time, but suddenly he asked, "Aren't you afraid it might have been me who threw the first punch?" "Not at all," I answered without hesitation. "I trust you. You wouldn't do that." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You trust me that much?" I lifted his chin gently, meeting his eyes. "You're my husband. If I can't trust you, then who else could I? My taste in men isn't that bad." His smirk deepened, though he tried to sound arrogant. And what if I wasn't your husband? I looked straight at him. There's no what if. No matter how many lives I go through, I'll still find you. Liam, I whispered softly. Have I ever told you that I really like you? From the very first day we met on that blind date, I already liked you. The truth was there had been a huge misunderstanding that day. Liam wasn't even the man my parents had arranged for me to meet. I walked into the cafe, saw him sitting there handsome, composed with that quiet confidence. And without thinking, I sat right down across from him and started introducing myself. The surprise in his eyes that day, I can still picture it perfectly. But he stayed polite, didn't correct me, just listened with a faint smile. It wasn't until my parents called, scolding me for missing my real blind date, that I realized I'd gotten the wrong person. After that, they kept urging me to meet the man they had chosen, but I refused and instead I went and registered my marriage with Liam. Do you believe in love at first sight? I asked him now. Liam shook his head. No, I nodded in agreement. Me neither. What we had was more like lust at first sight. His throat moved slightly, his jaw tightening. Emma, he muttered through gritted teeth. I'm still sore from today. Don't expect me to give it my all. I leaned in, brushing a soft kiss against the corner of his mouth. It's okay. I'll take care of it for both of us. He chuckled lowly. Then I'll leave it to my lovely wife. The night of the class reunion, Liam and I arrived a little late. As soon as we reached the private room, we could already hear voices and laughter inside. I heard Adam got his ass kicked by Emma's mechanic husband. Someone was saying, good thing he didn't marry her. She's nothing but trouble. Whoever ends up with a woman like that is cursed. Seriously, what kind of bad luck do you need to end up marrying a mechanic? Another voice sneered. Didn't Adam say they fought because of him? Maybe she went crawling back and the guy caught them. Ha! With a body like hers, if she threw herself at Adam, who could resist? The room erupted in laughter. I pushed the door open and walked straight in. Without saying a word, I picked up a glass of wine from the nearest table and threw it right in Adam's face. The laughter died instantly. Then I turned to the group of stunned faces around us. Why don't you all just say it outright? I said, my voice steady but sharp. I'd rather marry a mechanic than end up with Adam. Maybe then you'd understand just how worthless he really is. One of the guys, quick to recover, stammered. Come on, Emma. That's not fair. You shouldn't treat Adam like this. We're all classmates. It's not right to ruin the friendship. I gave a cold, humorless smile. Funny. When you were gossiping behind my back and slandering me, did you think about friendship then? Both of them fell silent, speechless. Then Adam spoke up suddenly, his tone strained. His face was still damp from the wine, his shirt clinging to his chest and making him look utterly miserable. Come outside. We need to talk. I laughed coldly. Why should I? Whatever you have to say, you can say it right here. Go ahead, tell everyone how I supposedly begged you to come back. Adam pressed his lips together, not answering. A few nosy classmates started encouraging him. It's fine, Adam. Just say it. We're all here for you. I smiled sharply. Exactly. You've got your little support group right here. Go on, make your big speech. Let's clear everything up, shall we? Adam repeated stubbornly. Let's talk outside. As he spoke, he reached out a hand toward me, trying to pull me along. I stepped back easily, pretending to be startled. Don't touch me. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. Careful, or they'll start saying I was throwing myself at you again. Adam froze, his face tightening. Emma, I'm right here. I cut him off evenly. But since you won't talk, I will. I turned toward the door and shouted, Honey! The door opened and Liam stepped inside. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and effortlessly confident as he walked in, his presence instantly commanding the room. A few female classmates whispered among themselves, eyes wide. Wow, he's so handsome, one of them muttered. No wonder Emma chose him. Yeah, another added softly. Adam's okay, but next to this guy? Not even close. When I glanced back, Adam's expression had turned pitch black. Liam set a laptop down on the table in front of me, the one I'd asked him to bring from the car. He had been waiting outside deliberately for this moment. I took out a small USB drive I'd kept with me, plugged it in and opened the file. You all keep saying I'm shameless, that I keep clinging to Adam, I said clearly. Then let's see who's been chasing who. I pressed play. Adam's voice filled the room. The recording captured every word of the phone call he'd made to me, along with part of our conversation when he showed up outside my apartment building. In my previous life, I'd been trapped in situations just like this. Accused, misunderstood, unable to defend myself. No matter how hard I tried to explain, I never had any proof. But this time I had learned my lesson. When the recording ended, the room fell completely silent. Even the few classmates who had been defending Adam shifted uncomfortably, quietly pulling their chairs back to put distance between themselves and him. I looked slowly around the room. That's the truth. Anyone with half a brain can figure it out. Now, about my husband supposedly attacking him. Why don't you all see for yourselves? I clicked on another file. Since returning from the police station, I'd gone to the shop to back up the surveillance footage just in case. I hadn't expected I'd need it so soon. The video played. It showed Adam storming into the garage, his face twisted with anger. After only a few words, he started smashing things. Liam had tried to calm him several times, but Adam refused to stop. He'd even gone out of his way to provoke him. Only when Adam insulted me for the third time did Liam finally strike back. Suddenly, a female voice exclaimed, "Wait, Liam? Are you the Liam Carter who went to Westfield High?" Everyone turned toward her. The girl blushed, flustered but excited. "Liam Carter, you used to play in that basketball exhibition match against our class. I remember. Some of the girls in my class secretly went to cheer for you." She turned to me with a grin. "Emma, you seriously don't remember?" I blinked, caught off guard. I had no memory of any of that. The girl continued eagerly. "That day, Liam kept looking over at our class. Later, we found out he had a crush on someone from our group. He even asked one of our guys to pass her a love letter. Back then, we weren't sure who it was for, but now it's obvious." She winked at me playfully. "It was you, wasn't it? The letter was for you, right?" I opened my mouth to deny it, but before I could speak, Liam said calmly, "Yes, that's true. I remember asking your class rep to deliver it." The entire room fell quiet again. All eyes turned toward the class representative, who happened to be Adam. His face darkened to an ugly shade of gray. As everyone stared at him, he stiffened, clearly panicking, and instinctively turned toward the door as if he couldn't get away fast enough. But Liam reacted faster. His hand shot out and pressed down on Adam's shoulder. "Explain," he said coldly. Adam stiffened all over, his jaw tightening. "There's nothing to explain," he snapped. "If you're going to accuse me, at least have some proof. That was years ago. Who'd still have evidence of something like that?" "Well," I said evenly, "I do." Every head in the room turned toward me. "If I remember correctly," I began, "the first love letter Adam gave me was on the same day as that basketball game against Westfield High. Back then I remember thinking it was strange. The handwriting in that letter was much neater, more elegant than usual, too perfect even." I paused, meeting Adam's eyes. After that, he kept sending me more letters, lots of them. I never replied, but I still kept every single one. "I can go home right now and bring them back if you'd like." Adam's face darkened, anger flashing across his eyes. "So what, Emma? Just because I didn't marry you back then, now you're trying to humiliate me in public?" I stared at him in disbelief. I'd known him for years, yet I'd never realized he could twist things so completely. "If you hadn't been whispering lies behind my back, none of this would have happened," I said coldly. He sneered, gritting his teeth. "You really are cruel." Liam couldn't hold back anymore. He shoved Adam back onto the sofa, rolling up his sleeves with a quiet, dangerous laugh. "We can save the revenge talk for later," he said. "Right now, let's talk about those love letters. If I remember correctly, I wrote 10 of them for her, and you were the one who told me she'd rejected me." I froze. My whole body went rigid. I turned slowly to look at Liam, then back at Adam. "You mean those 10 love letters you gave me? They were written by Liam." Liam nodded once. "After that, we graduated. Adam said paper letters weren't convenient anymore, and suggested we switch to email." My stomach turned cold as the realization hit me. At the time, I hadn't suspected a thing. But now, thinking back, it all made sense. "Adam," I said quietly, trembling with disgust, "you're sickening." The room went completely silent. Then one by one our classmates began to murmur. No way. So Liam was the one who liked Emma first and Adam stole her from him. You've got to be kidding me. God, I thought stuff like this only happened in romance dramas. What kind of person does that? He was class president for crying out loud and he pulled something that low. Seriously, he should compensate them both for emotional damage. Within seconds, the same group that had been defending Adam earlier went silent, avoiding his gaze. Unable to stand the stares, Adam stormed out of the room, his face as black as ink. Right after that, Liam and I were surrounded by a crowd of excited female classmates, their eyes full of envy and admiration. Adam's a total jerk. I can't believe I used to have a crush on him, one girl said. Honestly, Emma, you and Liam are incredible. It's like fate brought you two together, another chimed in. Yeah, someone added drearily. You know what they call that? Meant to be. Destiny. No one can separate you two. Later that night, under the soft glow of the warm lights, I wrapped my arms around Liam's waist, returning each of his kisses eagerly. He chuckled against my lips, his breath hot. You're awfully forward tonight. I smiled playfully, brushing my fingers along his shoulder. We're just getting started. Things grew more passionate by the minute. When he reached for the drawer beside the bed, I stopped him, whispering, Not tonight. And if something happens, so what? He froze for a second, eyes searching mine. So what if you get pregnant? Then we'll have the baby, I said simply. That was all it took. His restraint snapped completely. I don't remember much after that, only that when I opened my eyes again I was in a hospital room. Liam was sitting beside the bed, his eyes red, relief washing over his face the moment I woke. He told me that when I wouldn't wake up that morning, he'd panicked and carried me straight to the hospital. I'm fine, I said, wincing slightly. But next time maybe be a little gentler. Liam stared at me for a moment, then let out a half-exasperated, halfling sigh. Only you, he muttered, shaking his head. Only you would think about that after everything. Well, that's what you get for being too handsome, I teased. Stretching my arms, I smiled brightly. I feel great, completely refreshed. Go ask the doctor if I can be discharged yet. As soon as Liam left the room, my smile faded. Lately life had been so happy, so peaceful that I'd almost forgotten how I died in my previous life. It happened in the 5th year of our marriage. The doctor said that if the illness had been discovered earlier, there might have been hope, but I had gone to the hospital too late. That was also when I found out that my frequent miscarriages had been caused by the same illness. Liam had blamed himself endlessly after learning the truth. He regretted not taking me for checkups sooner, regretted ignoring my emotional state, regretted every careless word or missed sign until it was too late. That's why in this life, no matter what happens, I have to live well for him and for us. It took a long while before Liam came back. And this time he wasn't alone. My parents, who had barely acknowledged me for years, were with him. The moment they walked through the door, they grabbed my hands, eyes wet with tears. Sweetheart, my mother said, her voice trembling. How could you be sick and not tell us? I froze. From the day they had forced me to go on that blind date, threatening to cut ties if I refused, I had sworn never to contact them again. They had been so busy building their business when I was little that they sent me to live with my grandparents, barely ever visiting. By the time I grew up, they suddenly wanted to control every part of my life. I'd hated them for it. That's why in my previous life, when I fell ill, I never told them. My marriage to Liam had been partly out of genuine affection, but partly out of rebellion against them. It wasn't until after my death, when I watched them weeping uncontrollably at my funeral, that I finally understood. There are no parents who don't love their children. Sometimes they just love in the wrong way. Holding back my emotions, I asked coolly, "Why are you here?" Liam answered for them. "I called them," he admitted. The doctor said, "Your condition might be more serious than we thought." I couldn't make the decision alone. I fell silent. My parents were wealthy business owners. They'd never lacked money. In my past life, because I'd stubbornly refused to ask for their help, all the medical expenses had fallen on Liam's shoulders. He sold everything he owned, drowning in debt. All for me. From any angle, I had no right to let him bear that burden again. Lying back against the pillows, I said calmly, "Go talk to the doctor." Find out what treatment I need. As long as it can be cured, I'll cooperate. My parents were overjoyed. They immediately started calling their friends, pulling strings to arrange a transfer to the best hospital. With my parents taking charge, Liam could only sit quietly by my side, waiting for the doctor's updates. Later, my parents used the excuse of wanting to take better care of me to persuade me to move back home. I refused, but I still went with Liam once to retrieve something important. From the very back of the bookshelf, I pulled out a small wooden box filled with neatly stacked love letters, 10 of them in total written in strong, steady handwriting. Liam picked them up one by one, the same letters he'd written years ago. His voice carried a hint of jealousy. If I'd known, I would have brought them to you myself. I wouldn't have let that jerk steal them for so many years. I smiled softly. But Liam, if we had met back then when the timing wasn't right, we still might have missed each other. He shook his head firmly. Not if it were you and me. Never. Remembering how in my past life he had refused to remarry after I died, living alone until his last breath, I suddenly couldn't speak. What's this? Liam asked, pulling a stack of envelopes from the bottom of the box. My heart jumped. I quickly reached for them. Don't look at those. His dark eyes locked onto mine. Give them to me willingly, or do I have to take them? I pouted, reluctant but powerless, and finally handed them over. He opened one with a somber look. But after reading only a few lines, his expression changed completely, surprise and joy flickering across his face. These are letters you wrote back to me, he said softly. I nodded. Yeah, I wrote them back then. It was true. During senior year, I devoted myself entirely to studying. Any love letter I received, I threw away without reading. Except Adam's, but not because I liked him. It felt more like fate, as if something unseen had guided me, pushing our destinies together from the very beginning. I only ever accepted your love letters, the ones I wrote in return. Those I didn't start writing until after the college entrance exams. But by then, Adam had already left the city, and our communication had shifted to email. Those reply letters, I'd hidden them at the bottom of that box and never sent them. I never imagined that one day the person they were meant for would be the one to open and read them himself. After reading them all, Liam carefully tucked the letters into his jacket pocket. Watching him, I couldn't help but laugh, a mix of amusement and tenderness. Liam, I said softly, from now on, I promise I'll treat you better than ever. He looked up and corrected me with mock seriousness. No, that line's mine to say. I smiled, shaking my head. What a stubborn, childishly possessive man. Because the illness had been caught early this time, it hadn't developed into anything severe. I was lucky. Unlucky enough to face it again, but lucky to survive it. I followed my treatment diligently, went for regular checkups, and for 5 years the disease never came back. A year after I fully recovered, I found out I was pregnant. Liam treated me like I was made of porcelain. Every step I took, every movement I made, he hovered nearby, terrified I might fall or bump into something. He never missed a single prenatal appointment. But as my due date arrived, there was still no sign of labor. We decided to go to the hospital for a checkup, and that was where we ran into Adam. He was helping a woman who had just given birth, guiding her slowly down the hallway. Our eyes met for the briefest moment and I froze. He looked worn out, older, heavier, his shoulders sagging under the weight of life. The woman at his side noticed him stop and snapped irritably. What are you staring at? Keep staring and I'll gouge your eyes out. Then she turned to a little blonde girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, and scolded. What are you doing standing there? Go back to the room and watch your baby brother. The girl hesitated, shrinking behind Adam. Dad, she whispered timidly. Adam quickly lowered his head and hurried the woman into the room, avoiding my eyes completely. Liam said nothing, but I could feel his mood shift. He immediately asked the nurse to arrange a private suite for us, separate from the rest of the ward. Later, I learned what had happened to Adam. His business had failed, leaving him drowning in debt. To pay it off, he'd gotten involved with an older, wealthy woman. When his wife overseas found out, she divorced him and left him with their daughter. Since then, his life had fallen apart. So much so that he stopped showing up to class reunions altogether. Whenever our old classmates mentioned him, they would just sigh. That guy had everything. Looks, charm, talent, but he ruined it all himself. What a waste, Emma. Good thing you didn't marry him back then. I glanced over at the playmat across the room. Liam was sitting there with our little girl, his laughter pure and boyish, his eyes filled with warmth and light. A smile touched my lips. You're right, I murmured. I should thank him for not marrying me. Because of that, I got the chance to survive and to spend this life with the person I truly love.